Working with nature spirits is twofold: one in connecting with the natural world, and two in learning about the land's story. Together, this information can help both understanding of energies that we're working with, but also how to live in balance with the area that we live. So I'd like to tell the story of the soil where the botanical gardens grows from. Most of the lakes and valleys of Minnesota were formed during the last ice age, and then for thousands of years, a peoples came in and made this land their home. The northeastern woodland peoples, who are of the northern East Coast, along the St. Lawrence River, and the regions of the Great Lakes, were the first peoples to call this land their home. Under my feet now, this land was home to the Dakota and the Ojibwe peoples. They did as most people did of this continent, using the natural waterways as means for travel, for trade, and for the numerous resources that they give. The peoples then, just as any modern person today, lived in communities rich with family, with culture, and traditions. Later, when the first immigrants would arrive to these lands, they learned how to survive on this new continent, learning the seasons, how to hunt, and the ways of life by the original peoples. These immigrants then would learn trade and build trading posts along the same meeting areas of the original peoples. Eventually, many ways were abused, causing animals, nature, and the people to suffer. And then eventually wars were fought on these lands. Unfortunately and sadly, the original peoples of these lands, who had survived, were forced to relocate. This story is part of the trees, the plant, the water, the soil, the very air that we breathe. Wherever we live, wherever in the world we live, the history of the land that we live upon is part of us, and we are part of that story, a continual story. Allow me to introduce you to Virginia and William Clemens. It is thanks to them that we have the upper portion of this park area. And she affectionately looks over the rose gardens, which is just to the right. So the Munsinger Clemens Garden is divided in two sections. There is the upper part, which has that old world garden area with the fountains, statues, and walking paths. And then there's a lower part, which is the Munsinger Garden, and it has more of the natural feel, which is more my preference, but both are equally beautiful. So the story of this park begins back in the 1890s, when the area was used as a sawmill. Later in 1926, the Campfire Girls, which I assume is something like Girl Scouts, planted the Scott and Norway evergreen trees that are there today. And then in 1930, Joseph Munsinger, who was the park intendant for the St. Cloud area, took advantage of some government programs to help develop the park so that the area of St. Cloud had a community area. And then in 1934, the Timekeeper's Cabin, of which I affectionately call the Witch's Cabin, because who wouldn't want that little cabin with all those trees facing the Mississippi? I would love a little spot in the world like that.
Got stepped on. Rear end.
And everything else was pretty much developed by 1935. And the residents that live in and around St. Cloud, and I understand a lot of people travel to it from all over the state and areas around. And mainly the Munsinger Garden area is where you have certain events throughout the year, like music in the gardens and art fair in the gardens. And then every year they also have photography in the gardens, which you can submit your pictures that you took, and every year there's like a grand prize on who took the best image of the gardens. Hi. What you sassing about? The one thing that I've always loved about this park is the way that both parks separately feel. So the upper half, with all of the ironwork and everything and the fountains, has just this like, I come and sit in one of the many nooks and read. And then the lower half, the Munsinger Garden half, which is my personal favorite, is where it feels magical, especially if you're there in the morning or just at dusk before the park closes. I don't want to say that there's fae energy there, but I think there's fae energy there. It really has this magical feeling with the Mississippi and those tall, beautiful trees. It's one of my favorite places when I'm in the St. Cloud area to come by and just sit and be and just observe everything. So let's jump forward to the 1990s when a new park administrator for the St. Cloud area became aware of some land that was near Munsinger Garden across the street. He was living in the area of the gardens. They jumped at the opportunity to purchase it and to turn it into the old world gardens that it is today, with all the statues and fountains and beautiful walking paths. So his wife, Virginia Rose Clemens, was a massive gardener, and from what I understand is he did all of this in honor of her, and the whole city and other donors help keep the park going. So it's open today to anyone who wants to come visit it. They have, I think it's only open sunrise to sunset, and it's really just a gorgeous place to come and hang out, or just enjoy watching hummingbirds and butterflies and bees, or whatever it is that you love about gardening. So every area of the garden has like a different theme. So from color themes to like the rose gardens, it's really amazing. Plus they are always changing it by season. So if you go say 4 times a year during spring, summer, and autumn, it's going to be different. So it's a really good place. So tying this into witchcraft, we get to go to a place that has manicured gardens by expert gardeners and volunteer gardeners. If you want to work here, it's all volunteer. So it's a really good place to figure out how to learn about companion plants, how plants act in nature, all those things that I'm always going to be talking about on forming a relationship with plants and nature. Being here, there are plants that I have learned about that I never knew existed. Almost all the plants here are indigenous to the area, except for the plants that they have that go into a giant greenhouse during the wintertime. But the majority of the plants are indigenous. And a lot of gardens like this across the United States, I can't speak for the world, but as far as the United States, all the places that I have visited and I've lived in, there is always some kind of a garden community or a botanical garden that is like this, that is open to the public because they really want people to learn about the indigenous plants in the area. Coming to places like this offer a wealth of community where we can meet other people who love nature, and we can really grow in learning how to understand how plants grow and how to nurture them in the best ways that we can, so that we can bring that wisdom home with us, so that we can grow plants in or around our home. Because learning about herbs and learning about plants really helps us as witches. Witchcraft is about being creative, and so all life experiences can be brought into it. And gardens like this really encourage us to embrace that playfulness, the curiousness. And if you're a witch, all more the magical. And if not, then all the more beauty that we can share as humans through nature. So thank you for spending a few moments of your day with me. Hopefully you're having a good day or night wherever you are, and happy witching.